Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Sales Chatter at a special time today. We're going at 10 o'clock this morning. I'm your co host, Ryan Mohammed. With me is my main man, the bodacious cowboy, president and CEO of RGTX Logistics Solutions, Jeff Dickinson. How you doing this morning, brother?
Great, man. Unbelievable. Weeks flying by. It seems like every time we do this podcast, we always say the same damn thing, man. I don't know. I think it's just because we're busy and it's good to be busy. So, with that said, let's get into today's episode.
To the HPLS podcast. Live, relevant, and high performance information, conversations, and education weekly.
There we go. And I know we're feeling the little music this morning, getting the vibes a little right for a little week 2 and week 3 recap. Jeff, yesterday, before we actually get into it, man, like how was what'd you get up to last night? What was going on in the RGX to Logistics Solutions household?
Well, it was work. I mean, as you know, my wife works nights, not the graveyard shift, but she starts from 3 to 12, so it kind of gives me a little bit more time to dive into my work. Nothing new, but I went to a Knights of Columbus meeting on the night last night, and then got back, and then the phone was ringing, things were happening, so it's just like, what am I gonna do? Let's work. Let's go and do that. That's the greatest thing about what we do. We can choose what we do, when we do it, and why we do it every single day. There's nothing like it. That's why I have a perpetual smile on my face. I've had it for years, but it's just great to do what we do, man.
This is truly the best industry, and I keep on seeing amazing posts from everybody looking at collaboration and things like that. And that gets into today. Let's get into our week 2 and week 3. So if you're new here, we've done a bunch of episodes at the beginning of the year, and what we're doing this week is we're recapping each week as we kind of go along, and then kind of thinking of it of as a season finale. So the second week, Jeff, what we talked about was mindset a lot before you even make that call yesterday. If you missed yesterday's episode, we recapped what we talked about training with Scott Watanabe and training being a choice. Mindset, Jeff. Let's get started with your client profile. Jeff,
Hmm.
for the audience, everybody who's watching, what's a client profile and why is it so important?
Well, it really depends on your background, your experience level, what kind of company and client you want to go after, right? To each his own. Everybody has their own niche, their own experience and background in the industry. And that has a huge bearing on what is your ideal customer, profile, your ICP. Who are you going to go after? What is the high likelihood of the engagement if you don't stay in that lane, right? You know your niche, you know your value, you know what you're really, really good at. Why would you want to go after something that's not congruent with what you do and for how long you've been doing it, right?
100%. And breaking that down a little bit over the client profile, because I'm a big believer, that was one of the game changers I had when I connected with Dan. I've never had a client profile before. I did meet with Dan and kind of went through some of his training. And it was important to know that we can choose the life that we want to choose and pick the customers that we want to pick with, because, especially if you're brand new getting into the industry, you're all in sales focus, trying to close customers and like, okay, well, I got to make this person happy. And then we've all had that customer where, hey, we've got a fair rate in market. No one's buying a boat off of our rates, and then they just keep cutting you down. Can you do it for $50 cheaper? Can you do it for $50 cheaper? And then you keep on saying yes because you don't want to lose customer, but then you lose that A plus carrier. You got to go down to the D, the horrible carriers. Well, not horrible carriers, but just where service is not a reflection of the way that you operate, and you just want to kind of keep the customer from there, and it's just not beneficial. So an ironclad client profile for me, Jeff, one of the things that I have in my client profile is the types of customers I want to work with, the type of personalities that they have. I know you're a big research person, so as well for me, I need to know what their spend is, because if I'm going to put this time and investment into a customer, they can be shipping like 1 or 2 shipments a week, and I'm not gonna, it's just not feasible. We can be best friends, but maybe I'll just put them in a different category. Like you and I both got started with our balsamic vinaigrette customers that were just kind of helping out, and they're great people to help out. But it's just those are not going to grow my business. Maybe the referrals will come in later, but those specific accounts won't. And one thing I've kind of learned too is like those personality types, finding out, because everything's always honky dory when everything's going great, but it's when they go wrong. Are you going to have somebody calling you, cursing you, being disrespectful to you as a person, and understanding like, hey, am I just going to take that? And
No,
coming back to it,
that doesn't happen in this industry.
no, 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 not at all. Everyone's amazing, everyone's kind of really, really good with that. And the one thing that we agree to disagree on, that I think with my client profile, is that I set my life up that I'm not working evenings and weekends with my client profile. I have my shipments that run during certain times and things like that. And anytime I kind of see that, hey, freight never sleeps and all that stuff, I'm like, okay, well, that's a piece of the pie that you guys want, and you guys dominate that. That's okay. But for
Yeah,
me, I grew up in this industry where my boss, full transparency, doing 250K GP a month like clockwork, and never worked a weekend, never worked an evening. Once his phone, we didn't even have like laptops to take home. So once we left the office, and we'll deal with it the next day. Like situation might happen and things like that. And those were some of the kind of things I kind of took with myself to have that work-life balance. Um, Client profile before you pick up the phone. I'm a big believer, and we'll get into the third week, which we talk about prospecting. But I'm a big believer in making those 1,000 calls to figure out your client profile, to figure out what you're good in, figure out what your niche is, right? Because like Dan is a big what is it? He likes, what is that, snowmobiling, you know.
yeah.
But you might not want to, like, let's say you're a big fan of snowmobiling. You might not want to work in the snowmobiling industry of logistics. You might want to just keep that as a hobby or something like that. Jeff, what are your kind of thoughts of what you set up as your client profile as you kind of learned in your first year and then kind of progressing forward?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And I'm going to come at it from a different point of view, okay? Because I came from the different side of the industry, okay? I didn't work in sales or anything. So, what is my ICP? It's what I've worked in for 35 plus years. It's what I did well in. It's what I loved to do. Will I diverse and go into other areas? Sure, if it comes up, because I'm always willing to learn. And if you're not willing to learn something new every single day, you're not going to go to where you want to go. I can tell you that. So mine is auto parts, it's furniture, it's CPG, just to name a few, and I'm good at it because I've developed so many different things. So I'm going to stay on that path. I'm going to stay in that niche. My partner, he's a little bit different, so I'm learning from him because he dabbles in other things. So it's a nice mix of things where he's not vast in knowledge on that side, I pick up, and then vice versa, he picks up. So it's really good. And the thing is that I got to go back to to your statement that said, freight never sleeps. Of course it doesn't sleep, and if you want to work those hours, that's up to you. But let's face it, even though you don't set up your nights and your weekends as work hours, and that you want more family time yourself, let me tell you, if that phone rings and it's your customer, you're going to answer that phone call, no matter which way you look at it, because you're going to recognize it. You're going to have that customer name. You're going to have Betty's name pop up, and you're going to go, uh-oh, and you're going to respond to it. You're not going to go out of your way to go and work it or try to make more business, but you're going to answer those phone calls. So it doesn't matter what time of night it is. It happens to me all the time because I have a lot of customers in California. I live in New Jersey. So my day is already stretched out 3+ hours, probably 4, when you look at it. But that's the price you pay if you want to dabble in, different time zones. It doesn't bother me. So.
Yeah, I love that you said time zones too, and that's a big part of ICP. If you want to work, if I'm on the East Coast here, if I want to work on East Coast customers and kind of like look at different things, but hey, if I want to work on the West Coast customers, as Damon and Lisa, they're on the West Coast right now, and their time zones, they're deciding to come. It's 7 o'clock in the morning where they are. They're taking the time out of their day to wake up early and start their day with us, right? And it's up to what you want to kind of do. And we kind of see that kind of on the flip side too, because like I've had customers on the West Coast. I'm not just saying that I've only had East Coast customers that are near me and things like that. I've had customers from different ranges. And, I think an ideal client profile, and that's what the ICP kind of stand for, it's something that you can always kind of make fine tweaks, or you kind of review it. Because I actually have mine written down. Like mine's actually in a a Microsoft Word, and I kind of review it. I know it internalized in my head, but there's certain things I kind of like to review myself and kind of put some experiences, right? After every customer call, after every check call, after everything. Is this alignment with my ICP? You got two
Hmm.
choices, like we always kind of talk about with Rico, right? It's either yes or no, and then you kind of back forward there. And I think when it comes to your ideal client profile, that's the number one thing you need to have, or at least have the framework before you actually start making those calls, which we'll get to in the later part of the show.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely want to be able to do that, and like I said, the ICP is so damn important to your success. Because what's going to happen is if you stay in that lane, Ryan, and I'm not preaching to the choir, you're going to become an SME, a subject matter expert in that specific niche. And now you have to start really thinking, and I love your idea about writing down notes and what is your ICP. You also have to take into consideration what is my value and how am I going to add this to my relationship with this ICP. You have to do all this kind of stuff up front before you even start that engagement. Again, you make the phone calls. I don't, but I know how to engage taking a different route, and it works fantastic for me.
Yep.
So, yes, you have to be able to identify the issues and then tap into that value that you've created for yourself, over whatever time. You're gonna know that because
Fair
you're gonna
enough.
start you're gonna fumble, you're gonna fall, you're gonna pick yourself up, you're gonna get punched in the face, you're gonna be bruised, and you're going to finally fall into that hole that fits you, that fits your value, that fits your ICP. And it's going to be that wow moment where you're going to go, I really like this, because you're going to start analyzing all your phone calls and what's
Yep.
working, what's not working. And that huge funnel is going to be that little tunnel that you're just going to have tunnel vision, and you're going to be following straight down that middle, man. And it's going to be a good life.
It's
It's
gonna be a
going to be.
great life, and I love that you said that because it just reminds me, like when I didn't have, there's a difference in my way of that I did sales when I had an ICP and when I didn't. And when I didn't have an ICP, here's the question that I knew that I didn't have an ICP. I go to a bar, I go to a wedding, I go to any kind of public social event. Hi, my name is Ryan. Hi, my name is whatever. What do you do for a living? You know, when I didn't have an ICP, I'd be like, I'm a freight broker, and then I'm struggling, and then I didn't have that down pat. I didn't have that, let's say, elevator pitch or anything like that. But when I have an ICP, I can say, hey, I work in the logistics industry. These are the two industries that I work in, and this is what I dominate. And
Yep.
and then I could carry on that conversation from there. And then because I remember I had customers from all over the place, but I think it's really important to have that. And if you're
Yep.
getting started, definitely get that ICP. To the next one, Jeff, which is probably my favorite one because I played the video of Alex Hermosi on here about storytelling when it comes
Right.
to mindset and learning that skill of storytelling. Jeff, what's kind of give me some opinions on storytelling yourself.
Yeah. Storytelling comes from your experience and what you experienced. That's relatable to the conversation that you have at that time. There's a door that opens up during a conversation that you should be well prepared to tell that story. How does it relate to the issue at hand or the problem that he's telling you about that will be relatable to him as well and go, wow, that's how you handled it. You don't have to make it a long-winded story, but just something that's, extremely relevant to it and how and what was the issue, what was the problem, and what was the results after you implemented whatever it may be, that helped push the peanut forward, so to speak. And that's what a really good storyteller can tell and get and grab that attention and say, tell me more. Tell me more. I want to hear more about that.
Kind of want to like the bait and hook, but Anthony brings up a question here that I'd love to for us to tackle here. So we're making 100 calls a day. Do you call random prospects, or are you calling only companies that have the similar freight? So Anthony, what we're trying to talk about here with the ideal client profile is that you're deciding what you want to work in. So there's two ways. People always kind of think, oh, you got to stick to the industry. You
Mm.
could be your ideal client profile or your customer base can be geographical. right? So let's say you are like Jeff's in New Jersey. He's going to pick all the shipping customers in New Jersey. Doesn't matter. He can have that discussion with them and he can go out to see them. So, Anthony, there's two ways you got to figure out if you want to be industry specific or if you want to be geographical specific. For me, the way that I handle things with my CRM and things like that, I work in basically three industries, which is building materials, food ingredients, and pets. I love dogs. And those are the three things. So you'll never see me calling a steel customer or a customer who does water bottles. I'm just looking at my water bottle now. However, if I was to get a referral to one of those, I'm not saying no. I'm still always going to take the call, and that's what we're trying to say here. Always ABC, always be closing, right? So you always want to actually have those conversations as if they come in internal. But Jeff, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. You gotta. I know you're not a calls guy, but with
I
that being
know.
said, for prospecting,
I'm
just think
just
of the
honest.
mindset of a new person.
Integrity and honesty is first and foremost. So it's like I got to ask him, Anthony, why are you making 100 calls a day? What are you trying to accomplish in that? That's my first question. Do you need to make 100 calls? Are you just in that spray and pray kind of mode? What are you going after? Is it a quantity call where you need to make 100 phone calls, or is it a quality call where you're trying to narrow things down and define your path that you want to take? Who's putting the pressure on you? Are you making yourself do 100, or is someone else telling you you have to make 100? It really all depends on why you're doing it and the type of outcome that you want from what you're doing on a daily basis. What are the results? What's the end result at the end of the day? What are you trying to accomplish? Number of calls or number of meaningful conversations? Those are the things. And the way that you get to that is to define what kind of company and what kind of person you want to engage in. I mean, that's a huge thing to figure out. You're not going to do it right off the bat. Nobody does. It's
No.
you go through a lot of pain and a lot of falls before you find out what that is, and that all comes down to the ICP. So that's the questions you really have to ask you. And everybody knows I don't make a lot of phone calls. I rely on a lot of referrals and recommendations, and then I exploit that by bringing my references into play and say, hey, ask him, ask her. Look at my profile. I'm not going to chase. I'm the chasee, not a chaser.
Yeah, but I think that you fail to kind of realize, and that's why we're trying to bring the conversation, is that we're not talking about Jeff as of now, right? That's the
No,
whole
no, no.
issue.
And
We're talking to guys kind of
about,
build. So when you made that $9,000, like in your first
yeah.
year, I'm pretty sure you banged out a bunch of calls. Like I would assume that you would.
No, I didn't. I hired people to do that for me. That
Okay,
was
so
that was down. That was the downfall. It was just like, I got to do this. I don't care what it takes. I'm going to hire these people and have them work for me because I wasn't the sales guy, and it was the complete wrong thing. I was just pray and spray. I was throwing people at the problem, not being able to direct them on how or what they should do, thinking that they could do it on their own, and they failed because I was going after the almighty dollar, and it was like wrong, totally wrong. Absolutely.
So to come back to it. So switching back over to storytelling, so we can kind of stay a little bit track here. So I think like with storytelling, it's so important. Like we said, storytelling comes down to two things for me, Jeff, and it's very simple: do stuff, tell people.
Mhm.
And that's what I think storytelling kind of comes from. Because if you make, I know you're big on like the LinkedIn recommendations. I personally don't care about them, but those are things where you get from other people to kind of recommend you. No one's gonna make up a lie about you and post it on your profile, right? Like no one's gonna make all these
That's
assumptions
not
up. And
true. That's not true. And I have to cut you off on there. There are people out there, unfortunately, that ask friends for recommendations. Hey, listen, I'm trying to get out there. I'm trying to get recognized. Can you write me a recommendation or something like that? They never work with you. They don't know how you do things. But yet,
let's
you see
let's
your
just switch on that one. Yes, get away from that one because
profile.
for people do whatever they want to do, essentially for things like that. But I think like the right thing, the ethic thing is, and like, it comes down to your ICP too. Like, what kind of ethics do you have? Like, yeah, I think you wrote this morning about like empathy and like consistency like
Yes.
that. And I think when it comes to storytelling, people just want to be able to tell a story, and be able for people to be listened to. And you're getting to a point for me when I look at my storytelling.
Yeah.
I know when I talk to a shipper, I know where that and this is based off experience. I know where that call is going to lead towards, and I know where to kind of plug and play which story or how to map out and frame out. But that's only because I got the reps in, right?
Right.
This is not because I didn't get the reps in and kind of go from there. So I think when it comes to storytelling, all of us here, when we're talking to our wife, like the biggest storyteller that you can be is like, hey, when your wife, like you say, wife works at night, my wife gets home at like 4 or 5 o'clock. Babe, how was your day? And just to hear the storytelling that they would say, ah, man, I had a jerk person come to me today, and this how they express it and things like that. And you kind of pick and choose where we kind of lose. So I think one of the main skills that you should really invest in is storytelling, and not a plug here, but there is groups and communities out there in your local area that you
Yes.
can go to become either a better speaker or become a better storyteller in your ways, because nobody wants to hear my day was awesome, it was amazing. I had a burger for lunch. I need some water. Nobody wants to hear that monotone. You want to be able to get that tone. So,
Yeah.
Jeff, I think I asked you on that episode, like, what was one of your favorite stories that you've kind of ever told, and one of the things like that. What are some memorable things about storytelling that you pick up while you're having a conversation with somebody?
Yeah. I mean, one of my stories is that when in the auto parts business, it's all JIT and we used intermodal and over the road. And during the winter, a coupler froze and the train was stopped, and it had a very important container on it. So I literally had to stop the train, get pulled off in a ramp in Wyoming, got off of Wyoming, find an over the road chassis, have that container pulled off, put on the over the road, and get it into St. Louis. The St. Louis facility at Ford doesn't exist anymore, but yeah, and how to get it there in a jiffy, and it cost me a lot for sure. But that's a storytelling because it's telling people about the type of problems that you like, the extreme type of problems, that's relatable. If they're talking about intermodal or shipments or JIT, they want to know what you did, how you did it, and what was the result. That's the story that you need to tell.
Yep. Yep. And it's the story that you want to tell. And I think any kind of tips for anybody who's looking to become a better storyteller, find 3 to 5 people that you love hearing stories from, whether they can be people like business people that you see on social media. For me, Jeff, my favorite storytellers are comedians. I love watching stand up and seeing comedians. Like, I think Dave Chappelle is just probably one of the best ones,
Oh,
where
he's fun.
he could tell a story at the beginning of his stand up his sketch, and then at the end of it, he'll tie it all in together, and you're like, this son of a, and everything
Yeah.
kind of comes together. You're like waiting for that kind of punchline. So understand that, do better storytelling, and then you'll be able to connect with people more on customers. So let's get into like week 3, our favorite. We talk about, so training week 1, week
Yep.
2 mindset. We're talking about ICP and storyline, but it's time to pick up that phone. It's time to make some connections. It's time to get out on the battlefield. The first topic we talked about, Jeff, was cold calling, right?
Mm.
So give us your thoughts, Jeff.
Oh boy. You know, I come from a total different part of the industry, and if you didn't work in that industry, I don't think that you would understand as much as I do. Um, it hurts to receive calls from unethical brokers that are out there that don't know you, that don't know your company or anything like that. So my mindset on calling is already etched in my head. I don't like doing it because I know how much time that traffic managers and logistics managers, supply chain managers actually have during the day if in their complex logistics operations. They don't have the time of day, and they surely not don't want to get wasted by someone that's not doing their homework and doing getting knowledge on that company and receiving a phone call. It's the quickest way to a hang up. I can tell you that right now. So I prefer to do it differently. I don't want to be a chaser. I want to be a chasee. It's worked for me. It's not easy to do that. But if you have the customers that you have in-house right now, what better way to get a new client than to exploit that and to talk to your references and talk about, hey, you're doing business with this vendor or this supplier. Do you mind if I threw your name in the hat and reached out to him? I mean, I am doing a pretty damn good job for you, and I'm sure I'll do the same for your vendor who put a feather in your cap. Just go about it something like that. It's a different way, but just I think about time. Time is important to me, right? If you're doing 1,000 calls a month, 3,000 calls in a quarter, and you're spending 7 minutes a call on the call, putting it in the CRM, it's average about 7 minutes a call. That's 21,000 minutes to gain, in short, 3.6 new.
So where's this formula coming from? Just so I can kind of like dispute it. Like where are you
It's
coming up
2%.
with this?
It's 2%. 2% of 100 calls you get two. So you put all of this in together. You're qualifying. You get about 6% of 3,000 calls or qualifier prospects, or 180. And then out of that, about 2% can become actual clients from all those calls, which is 3.6 to 2 times 18, right? 3.6. So it depends on what band, transportation spend band that you're working in. Who are you going after? Are you going after the $100,000 to 250 prospects? Okay, and then think of the other thing. You spend all this time, you get them on board. How long are they going to be with you? What's the average time span that a client is on board with you? Are they on board for maybe 3, 4 months, 5 months till they find another guy that's cheaper? Or do they stay on board with you for 2 or 3 years? What's the turnaround? How many times do your customers rotate on a different basis? Okay, so I think of that because I would rather go to the big hitters and make what I do and concentrate on them than the smaller ones. That's just my approach, because I think it's time well spent and the results are more beneficial to you and your business than the small ones. That's I mean, I don't know. It's mathematics.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, I find the numbers a little bit disputable, but for me, the way that I kind of operate is people always think like, well, first and foremost, just want to get back to you saying like you were in the shoes and your day's being interrupted and things like that. Everything we do in life, Jeff, in my opinion, is that we're pattern interrupting. We're interrupting something.
Sure.
Like when I went to go talk to my wife, when we were dating and stuff like that, that was interruption on her day. She wasn't expecting me to reach out or like talk to her, have that conversation. I know the story with you and your wife was amazing. The dress thing in the store, that was an
Right.
interrupt. You interrupted her day, dress shopping and things like that. And the way that I see it, and I think this is good advice for people kind of getting into it. When I go into sales and I'm making my sales calls, I'm not trying to talk about freight. I'm not trying to have a 20-minute conversation on the first call.
Right.
My intention for every cold call that I make is to book a meeting. That's it. I'm just trying to book a scheduled meeting, a 15 to 20 minutes, so I can put my feet up and let's get into it. And I know a lot of people say, oh, research me and do these things. This is just the way I do things. And I find that it works for me is that I don't do any research until we have that scheduled calendar. I obviously know the company. I'm not gonna
Right.
not look at it, but I'm not gonna go in depth until we actually have a scheduled call on the calendar. For any kind of reps, the way that I kind of operate is that I like to have about 15 meetings a week, brand new prospects. That's the conversation I like to have. And it's not necessarily for me like waste of time. It's just like I'm gonna be spending the time regardless. I want to have nice conversations with people and see if they're a fit or not. I've never had anybody hang up on me. I've never had anybody swear at me. It's just how you kind of input it, right? I feel like somebody would swear at me if I was to call them, and once I get past my speech and stuff like that, I'm like, okay, well, do you have freight, or I got trucks in the area, or what do you do, and things like that. Those things you kind of want to stay away from, because at the end of the day, that's when you're truly interrupting their day, right? But if I'm just my cold calls are maybe a minute to 2 minutes, cool, we book that meeting, see you in a couple days, and that's it, and that's when we can put up the feed and we can kind of have those conversations. So in the way that I kind of think about it, my cold calls lead to warm discovery calls, and warm discovery calls gets me to hot and close and kind of go from there. So those are just my thoughts on cold calls specifically.
Oh no!
I
And
think
you
like,
know what's great about this? It worked for you, right?
oh yeah, it works. Yeah,
It worked. What I did worked for me.
yeah,
The same shoe doesn't fit everybody's foot. It's what's comfortable to them. Let's put it that way. It's being comfortable with the way, with your own approach. Everybody is different. What these are alternative ways or options that you can choose that might fit what you're trying to accomplish, whether it's based on time, revenue, if you can support your family,
Yeah.
your lifestyle and everything. It really all depends. That's the wonderful thing about this. It's
This industry
that
is so
all
amazing, that yeah, there's no one way to the finish line,
there
and
is. There really
for
is.
us, it's amazing kind of see, and I treat it like the way like I handle any kind of training that I do online and things like that. I'm not gonna absorb 100% of the training, Jeff. I'm gonna take out some nuggets. It's like when I read a book, right? I'm not gonna memorize a 400-page book, but there's gonna be probably I try to aim for 3 to 5 lessons or habits that I can take away from this book and just and put it in daily, right? And
Right.
that's what I try to do with my prospecting calls as well. Just trying to make sure because I'm not gonna be a fit for everybody. Chris Jolly said this last week that really set a point for me is that he started up with like I believe his own logistics. I think it's called Freight Coach Logistics. He's making the calls. He's starting his book of business from zero, just like all of us.
Yeah.
He said on his podcast, as much as acclaimed as Chris Jolly is, he
Yeah. I
gets
know.
no's from people's. He gets F offs from people's. We're all the same here. So don't think that maybe his experiences, he can tell better stories and things like that with experience. But with that being said, we're all kind of on the same row here, right? So it's pretty cool to see.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's funny. I mean, let's put it this way: if every phone call that you made was a yes, you'll be the next Bill Gates.
Yeah. You know what? Yes.
Think about it. I mean, this industry, you get no's all the time. I don't care if I get a no. I don't give a crap. It doesn't bother me at all. I just have a different way of slaying dragons. Everybody does. I mean, it's like you want to minimize those no's and get more yeses. Then I guess for me, I concentrate more on the customers that I have, and I want to knock it out of the park because I want to keep them in house because I believe in clients for life. I don't believe in clients for a couple months and I'm going to go spend my time canvassing and going prospecting where I'm going to lose contact with them because I am who I am and my partner is who he is. And we have, a certain amount of time available to spend with each one of our clients. I'm going to make sure I knock it out of the park because those are the ones that are going to help me build my company and our partnership. And that's the way I do the thing. So it's all about timing. Everybody's different. It all depends. If you're willing to hunt and not service, depending upon the size of your company, if you're an individual, do you want to be a hunter? Do you want to be a farmer? Do you want to be a service provider? I mean, it all depends. Do you have
But
enough time to do all three?
yes. So I will say yes. So I'll come back and say yes. You do have all time to do all three, and the reason why, because I do that. A lot of other people that I kind of talk like-minded people is that they do that as well. Mind you,
Right.
for what I'm kind of doing, like prospecting for me, like at this stage of my career, it takes about 2 or 3 hours of my day. Right. So I still have the rest of the day. I still do this podcast for like half an hour. I still do my
Right.
customer checks and you got to look at where you're at too, because disclaimer to everybody here that I'm not a cradle to the grave rep. Right. So I know I've had conversations. I remember talking with Matt. He's a cradle to the grave guy. So it's like his thing is he's finding like the time capacity of it, right? Like I'm dealing with my customers, I'm dealing with the carriers and things like that. I don't have time to prospect. But the one thing I always go back to, when somebody says that, hey, they don't have time to prospect, it's like you're gonna feel that in a month or two. You could be doing all these things and you could be capping out your customers and they can only go so far for you as well. So we had Jeb Blunt on here, probably
Yeah.
one of my favorite episode of Sales Chatter Royal, and he always kind of talks about, you got to build pipeline, especially in these uncertain times and things like that. And getting to it, I know this one is not your favorite one, but the next episode we had after cold calling was emailing. I am a huge fan of emailing. I run a lot of campaigns, and here's what doesn't work for me. And I despise it, but teach their own because there is success from it. But the whole spray and pray method with emails, it's just not my thing. Just for everybody who's watching, the way that I send emails, I'll start with subject line. Subject line is 3 words or less, and my emails are maybe 2 or 3 sentences. Then again, disclaimer again, I've never closed business through email. I'm not trying to close business through email, just trying to get to that scheduled call. So that's the whole point of me making cold calls and making cold emails, is to get to that scheduled calls where I can rest back, put my feet up, and let's truly dive deep.
Yeah.
Uh, Jeff, love to get your thoughts.
I'm with you. How about that? I'm with you. Short, precise, get to the point, and end it with an action. End it with an action. Drop it in there on there. I'm not going to push. I'm in no situation to create pressure to whom I'm reaching out to. All right, here it is. This is what I do. I know what you have there. If when in doubt, check me out. Go to my profile. I'm here
Love that.
for you. When you're ready,
Love
call
that.
me. That's
I
it.
love that. I love that
I
so
mean,
much.
that's it. I'm not going to go into great detail because guess what? I don't have to because if that prospect, if I get his or her interest, and I say check my profile out, I don't have to tell them what I do. My profile tells that. I don't have to waste their time. When they have time, when they can schedule, you know what? I'm going to see what this guy is all about. I'm going to
Yep.
see what she's all about. That's why I'm so adamant that your profile on LinkedIn has to be in line with what you're preaching, stating. Don't say something you can't do. You're gonna be caught with your pants down around your ankles. If you say what you do what you say, and it's documented. It goes a long way. But don't bullshit anybody, man.
Yep.
Tell it the way that it is. Throw it in their lap. Let them do the background work because if they're smart and they're smart shippers and they want to do business with a credible person, they too have to go and do their background checks and everything because if they fail, it's their fault. It's not your fault because they didn't do what you're supposed to do when you reach out to those people.
Love
Simple.
that. That exactly. It's just that simple. You want to keep your core values and you be sympathetic. And I love that you said that. The email, my a pet peeve of mine is like finish an email like, hey, do you have 5 minutes this week? Do you have 15 minutes this week? Asking for time because, like we said, time is valuable. Time is not something that we get back, and time beats everybody. It's something that it takes a toll on everything and everyone. I just think for me, I leave just like you said, that call to action is opposed to learning more. Any thoughts? Question mark, and let them figure it out on their own. At the end of the day, we all know in this industry, this is not a hey, you're gonna close customers and get this big fat paycheck this month. If you're brand new, it's gonna take some time. You're in a relationship business, and that's what we're talking about the storytelling. Like Jeff, you kind of mentioned like your first year doing $9,000. A lot of people would be like, oh no, like I got to get out of here. This is not working for me. But you stayed the
Exactly.
course, and kudos to you. You're here right now. Like I saw a message today that somebody said that left a comment under yours was like, you're an amazing person. You're one of the reasons why I'm on LinkedIn, and I am so thankful for you being an asset in our industry.
I
Right?
didn't see
That
that.
oh yeah, check out your latest post. Someone left that for you. Imagine that message wouldn't be there if you were like after that first year, like screw it, I'm gonna go do something else. I'm gonna go back to being a logistics manager or go work for go work for a logo. Right? So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So the thing is that if you really truly want to be in this industry, you need to walk through fire, to climb over barriers, to pound through obstacles, because you get blindsided in logistics every single day. If you can't put up with that, get the hell out. I'm telling you right now, because it's going to be a complete waste of time. That's all part of your mindset. And if you've been in the industry a long time, it's there, it's going to come. It's not just being said, it's there. I've lived it, you know, tremendous amount of obstacles that you wouldn't believe, but you have to have the willingness to move forward if this is what you do, and if you do it right, and you take into consideration what Ryan and myself and others say about the industry, and you think about your own self-interest, take it to heart, man. Learn every single day and walk the path, and if you do it right, you're going to love it. You're going to love every damn second of every single day in this industry.
You really are. And, just coming to the cold emails, another thing that I do a lot of what you're kind of saying is like, I use a lot of video in my video because I do like a lot of face to face. And I actually had a customer call. That's why we actually moved to our episode today, 10 o'clock. And one of the things they mentioned was like, it's really nice to see face to face. We're kind of still getting back. It's one of the best things you can do. And, just with the whole prospecting strategy. So I'll just go quickly. Have a prospecting strategy where you're consistent to yourself and you stick to it. For me, the way that I operate, Jeff, is first touch will be a call, second touch 48 hours later. So I'd say a rule of thumb: don't call somebody like every single day. That's a little bit weird. That will get you to hang up on them. But
Well,
like
that's
I,
your
for
right
me,
flag.
yeah, exactly. Red flags right away. And Jeff mentioned when he was in that chair, he put red flags. So just kind of be cognizant of somebody's time. For me, I run sequences where I go email, call, direct mail. I know a lot of people don't do that a lot, but sending snail mail to people, Jeff, has actually worked for me. send them a coffee card, and send them a proposed time. Like, hey, can we have coffee together at 10 o'clock? And it sounds lame. I know it does, because even to me, I'd be like, yeah, this really sounds lame, but it works. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Hey, you want to go on a date?
yeah, exactly. Exactly. This is Tinder for work, I guess.
That's it.
But with that it said, try to think creative ways about it, because at the end of the day, you're gonna form your own identity and what works. Because somebody might be like, hey, 100 calls works for me. Someone's gonna say 100 emails works for me. Someone's gonna say 5 emails or like, figure out your own thing. And that's what we wanted to do with all these episodes, was find your voice, find what works, and go after it and stay consistent with it. So because you have the channels, like we said, you can social sell on LinkedIn. A lot of people, I want to talk about analysis paralysis, which is an actual thing. They either
Yeah.
get caught up in too much research, or they just got caught up on scrolling on LinkedIn for no reason. I'm just getting information, just getting information. You got to take action. I don't care if you're brand new in this industry. Jeff and I might disagree on this part, but if you're brand new in this industry, you haven't sold anything in your life before in logistics, you got to make those 1,000 calls, man. You got to make those. You got to make those reps. You got to make those touches, because Daman
Oh,
said this in a previous episode: is, hey, you got to be sales focused at the beginning of your career, but then you switch to an operational, right? As Jeff kind of says, and then that's where you kind of see the moving the peanut forward, and you start making that bank. But
yeah,
you really,
I
really, really
agree
got
with
push.
you. I agree with you, because how is one going to learn?
There we go.
How is one going to learn if you've never been in the industry? If if you've never been in the industry, you've never been in a warehouse, you've never been in a distributor, you've never been in a truck, you've never managed people, and you said, I'm going to try out this brokerage stuff. I went to school, I did all this, and then you do an interview, you sit down, you are going to make 1,000 calls. You're not going to sit there and it's not going to come to you. And then, you know, it's going to separate those really, really quick. It's like, oh, this is bullshit. I can't do this every single day. Or, you know what? I can do this, And then I made 400 calls and I got 399 no's, but I got a possibility. I mean, you're going in the right direction, but then you're going to find out, how can I streamline this? How can I be more productive? How can I get better responses to what I'm doing so I can engage more? And you're going to start defining yourself, and you're going to start finding those path. Everybody has to do that. Everybody has to fall to learn.
Yep.
It's going to be painful. Bring a lot of Band-Aids. It's going to freaking hurt really bad. It really is. I know for a fact, I mean, I have a ton of friends that are in brokerages that started in brokerages, and they do things much different than and they hurt. They bled. They went home sad.
Yeah.
They talked to their family. They brought it up at dinner time. That it was miserable. But those who were persistent and had that drive, they succeeded. And because they were persistent, they went after what they really, truly wanted. And it will be a good life, man, if you do it right.
Perfect. I love that.
Whatever right means to you.
Exactly. And just have that, be an ongoing student and be a sponge, especially if you're making those initial 1,000 calls. Be a sponge and learn that, because for us, we get caught up so much that, hey, the day sucks. But I'll tell you this, Jeff, when I worked in the corporate industry, we'd have so many new sales reps come. They would hustle, 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 and then they get to their breaking point. Maybe it's a couple months in, and then they're gone, right? And then what happens when somebody leaves a company? Your boss calls all you guys, and they just share out the leads. What the previous person working on. Many accounts I've closed because of somebody else leaving. And you think about it, you're like, okay, it's yours, but it's like, if this person stuck out to it, if this person just really, really, they were right there, but they just didn't know, right? And it sometimes just takes a different approach and things like that. So I think, at least give it a fair shot in what you're doing, and be
Yeah, you
consistent,
have to.
have integrity, and have an empathy. That we always kind of say, empathy is the biggest skill that you can learn. I don't care what anybody
Yeah,
says.
that's the biggest thing that's missing in this industry. Empathy. Be empathetic. Try to understand. Be a good listener. Try to literally understand and feel the pain of the person that you're talking to. And it will come across so easy once you understand those pain points and be, like I said, truly empathetic with that individual. I hear you. I totally understand you. Listen, here's what I could do for you. And I'd love to get your feedback. That's the way that you think, because now you're taking a burden. There's a person on the other side that's actually going to listen to what I have to say. And I'm talking as the recipient of the phone call. Wow, that guy was really engaging. He really understands what I'm going through. Maybe this individual can help me out with this situation because he's really talking my language. That's where you got to get. That's where those long-term business relationships are found, from actually realizing there's some congruency there in that conversation. But you got to identify it, and you got to strike when the kettle, when the iron's hot, and you have to be able to realize what's being said. So listen.
Perfect. And there's no better way to end today's episode. That was amazing feedback from you, Jeff. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think, doing yesterday and today has really given me appreciation for what we've done this year. And I would love to look back, because you and I started in September, and kind of look at back those episodes, but it's really given me appreciation for what we've done and the messages that we're giving to everybody. So
we try every day, Brian.
We're trying, man.
Try every single day, right or wrong. Some people will say, yeah, that's pretty good. And some people go, that's bullshit. That's what happens, but if you believe in yourself and what you're trying to portray and say, doesn't matter what people think,
doesn't matter. It's run your own race. I always kind of say that, run your own race. The one thing that I kind of do is like, hey, I don't gatekeep. So if anybody wants to know anything, just go from there, and you kind of go from there. And Anthony, I've seen you on LinkedIn and things like that. Is awesome. He wants to become the slot machine in arcade. I would have messaged you some contacts after, Anthony, because I know some pretty good ones. But there's some good stuff going into those stuff, and being straightforward, and the advice and perspectives that we both give are gold. So thank you so much, Anthony. I'll message you after. Because that is a great industry to be in. I did a little bit of work in that industry, and it's a lot of fun with seals and all that stuff and things like that. So with that being said, tomorrow, what is it, Jeff? What is tomorrow? Sorry.
Talk about timing.
What's tomorrow? What day it is tomorrow, Jeff?
Data Day Wednesday, my favorite day of the week, with our good friend Dean Croak, principal.
So it's going to be an amazing day. So
that freight and analytics, you do not want to miss that. A lot of good information comes from that show.
A lot of great information that he brings, and I've used this. I would say anybody who's watching tomorrow, like our Wednesday episodes, don't just think of it as, hey, we're giving the data. Use your data to tell a story. Make sure in your customer conversations, use this to kind of propel you forward, because it's worked for me. I could be a testament that the data days I've used it on my customer calls and my customer emails, and it's actually worked. So with that being said, catch us back at the replay. We'll hit the replay, maybe not at 12 today. Maybe we'll go a bit later at 1 and 4, maybe an hour later, since we bumped it up, just kind of see a little bit of engagement. But with that being said, if you found value in this video, or even yesterday's video, or any future videos or previous videos, let us know. Please like, subscribe, share this with a colleague, share this with anybody that you think that can benefit their day. And you know what? We'll see you guys tomorrow. Jeff?
Hey, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for, bringing us into your work office or your living rooms every day. We appreciate it. Hopefully you'll join us tomorrow. Have a great day. Audacious Cowboy out.
Take care, everyone.